Good afternoon. It's Gordon with Triangle Lawn Games. I'm excited to be back and sharing some more information with everybody here on the channel. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about Nerf stuff. So something that we've really been working on at Triangle Lawn Games is building out resource guides for folks that want to run their own parties, whether it be a cornhole tournament or a Nerf party. We're working on field day stuff. We're trying to help you run your own parties so that you don't have to pay somebody to be there, especially when you might have a limited budget. So Nerf is a really, really popular and exciting thing to do, especially it seems like for kids' birthday parties. That seems to be the kind of the core competency there. But what we wanted to try and do was give you resources so that you would know what equipment to buy, you would know how to play the games, you would know how to set up the equipment, and you would know how to make sure that everybody has a good time. So I'm going to share my screen over here, and what we've got actually is a pretty incredible, party guide for running your own Nerf party. So if you go to trianglelawngames.com, you can find everything you need to know to run a Nerf party. That's going to be on our Nerf page. So if you just go to the Nerf page, the main one's going to be for Raleigh-Durham where we're based, but we do Nerf in other places. But you can click Nerf Battle Guide, and it's how to run your own Nerf party, right? So it's got lots of good information right on this page. You can buy guns. You can find out, what the difference between, say, a Nerf Elite and Nerf Rival, and we've got a video on that, and I talk a little bit about what's different and what's good. Long story short, the Elite stuff is a lot better for younger kids, and the Rivals is a lot better for older kids. That's the basic gist of it. So we talk about different game modes, but ultimately, if you click on this download battle guide, it's going to open up the Nerf Facilitator guide. So we do Nerf facilitation, and we pay coaches to come out to your place and run the party. And this is something that we share with our Nerf facilitators, especially when we're first training them and getting them going. But we decided that we would share it with everybody because a lot of people might want that information. So this is our Nerf Party Facilitation Guide, and we'll start by just going through this. If you're interested, subscribe to this channel. Make sure you like the video. I'm going to have more information about all this stuff in the description, but I certainly love to share this information and to be useful to people that are trying to run their own party. This is going to be a little dry. I'm going to start talking about kind of some of the details of how to run individual games. And I'm not going to dive into it too deeply just because it is available right here on the channel. But I did want to show you that and just kind of roll through some of it because I think it's cool. I think it's interesting. So the first thing I want to talk about is equipment. And with equipment, you're going to need the basics are going to be basically the guns, the darts, and masks. You want the guns because obviously that's the star of the show, right? And there's lots of different types of guns. We'll get into that a little bit. And then the darts or the ammo. So that with the elite guns that we were talking about, the ones that are, I would say, good for kids between 6 and around 12 or 13. I mean, anybody can play. I shoot the guns sometimes myself. It's fun. But that age range is probably 6 to 12 for kind of the elite, the standard ones with the little darts, the blue darts that everybody knows. And then the Rivals ones are the little yellow balls, and they shoot a lot faster, and they're much better for older kids. They're super cool, and they're much more realistic, like a paintball or airsoft experience. But for little kids, I would say definitely no. Anybody younger than 10, absolutely not. 10 to 12, you're kind of pushing it a little bit. I would say 12 and over. We say 12 and over on our website for the Rival stuff. So that the guns obviously are important, darts and ammo. We have to recommend the eye protection. So for us, if we rent stuff to people, it is a liability for us to not recommend the eye protection. You have to wear it if you're using our equipment, but we just recommend it in general. It's a good idea. You can get hurt seriously, especially if you're using the Rival stuff and you get hit in the eye. That's a big problem. So make sure you wear your goggles. I'll have links below that you can buy some of the best stuff that we've found over the years for Nerf equipment that's affordable, that's easy, that works well. So I'll have links to that as well. And then when we get into the guns, though, you're going to have different types of guns. So you have as we see some of these pictures, you can see this is kind of a single double shooter. There are single shot ones, there's double shot ones, there's 3-shot ones, but these are the real basic ones where you just put a dart in the front, maybe pull that little handle on the bottom, and it shoots a dart, right? Super simple, good for a sidearm, good for little kids. That's the best use for those little single shot ones. The next one are going to be sort of the smaller handheld drum fed ones. So this one is a pump action. So you pull the pump on the back and then that drum spins and shoots the darts. With all the drum fed ones, you really want to make sure that the dart is pushed all the way to the back of the drum. Otherwise it could misfire. That's the problem we see the most with those drum fire ones, is that people haven't pushed the darts all the way back. So if you're having an issue with that, I would check that out. Then the next one up, and this is kind of become our primary for the rental equipment, is the drum fed kind of larger guns, where you have the pump in the front. You put 2 hands on it, you're pumping, you're shooting, pumping, you're shooting, and the drum feeds every time. And that one's, I believe, called the Shockwave. The other one that we use quite often, we started using these and we've sort of moved away from them to the drum fed, but the Delta Troopers are these magazine fed ones. And so that's where you have a pump on the top, and then you have a magazine with 10 or 12 darts, and you push that up, and then you pump each time to shoot. So those are super cool. This is kind of the shotgun. They call this a Warden. So that's the kind of shotgun approach where you have 4 or 8, shots on the front, and it, might shoot all at once, or it can shoot them one at a time with a pump. And then this is the rival one. This is the Artemis. That's the one we typically use, is the Artemis, and that's got these kind of drums on the back that you fill with the yellow balls, and then every time you pump, it shoots. You can switch them to shoot double or triple shots as well. They're very cool. And then when you're talking about guns, you talk about troubleshooting, right? So just a few troubleshooting tips. Like I was saying with the drum fed ones, make sure those darts are pushed all the way back. With the magazine fed ones, you're going to find that if the darts if they get put in the wrong direction into the magazine and they get pushed up in there, you're going to have an issue. So if you have the magazine turned around the wrong way, that's going to be an issue. So make sure that the direction is correct with the arrow on the magazine and the dart is facing forward and it's pushed up all the way into the chamber, and then you have to cock those really hard. So that's why these rival ones, these elite shot or Delta Troopers have not been great for little kids. So anywhere between under, I would say 8, maybe 7 if they're a little more advanced with Nerf guns, but they're not great for little kids because they can't push them forward all the way, and they don't have a good experience. And for us, that's the most important thing, is we want the kids to have a good experience. That's why we do this. So that's a little bit about the guns. Other equipment, you're going to need darts or balls if it's the rivals. Typically, we have about 50 darts or balls per kid, per person. And so that's a pretty good overall number. You can have more, you can have less. It's up to you. But, you typically have the kids pick stuff up every round or two. So we'll talk a little bit more about running rounds, but that's typically the cadence there. You definitely want to have safety goggles. We do have a couple links, like I said, down there. There's the complete, with a strap, and they're like ski goggles. They'll go all the way over the face. Or a lot of times kids really do prefer sort of the kind of work goggles, the safety goggles that are more like glasses that just go over your face. And those are great too. They protect the eyes well, and they're lighter. They're a little bit, they don't get sweaty and fogged up as easily. So we do recommend those. Vests are important because then it feels cool. It looks cool. That's a big part of it. And then it also allows them to put darts and extra ammunition and magazines and things in there. Wristbands can be fun because they can put extra ammunition around that. So that's kind of like the individual gear. There's other stuff that you can get, like radios and walkie-talkies and stuff. We don't mess with that typically. I wouldn't recommend getting that stuff. It's just a novelty more than anything, but it could be fun if you want to have that. And then the bunkers are going to be pretty important. So there's kind of a couple types of bunkers. And frankly, if there's someone out there, comment on this, that has a better bunker, or you've invented a better bunker, because I'd love to know about it. But basically the 2 types of bunkers that we've found that we use frequently are sort of your standard Nerf bunkers. They're normally about 3 feet tall and a couple feet in diameter. They're round or square, and they blow up, and they stay inflated okay. But if somebody jumps on them, or if somebody, if they get a hole or something, then you'll know it, and they'll deflate. And they're okay. They're definitely not that bad, especially if you have a bunch of them. There's some Nerf packs that you can get that have sort of like a mesh siding on the front and sides, and those are pretty cool for sure, because they will, be the kind of traditional bunker you can dive down into and have, sides and a front. But the other ones are kind of just like cylinders or cubes, essentially. Now, that said, we also do have some paintball style bunkers. They're much bigger. They're much more of a hassle to carry around and blow up and inflate, and but they're much cooler. They're definitely much cooler. They're huge. They can be between 7 and 10 feet tall sometimes. So if you're looking for that type of experience, you would look for paintball bunkers. And those are going to be very expensive to purchase. You're going to end up spending, if you wanted 8 or 9 bunkers or 10 bunkers, you're going to end up spending well over $1,000 for all those bunkers and a pump. We rent that in Raleigh. That's the only place we have the paintball bunkers. At all of our other Nerf locations, they typically have just the standard Nerf bunkers, and we'll, put sand in the base and give you a pump with them so that you have everything you need. But yeah, those are kind of the 2 types of barriers. Sometimes if they don't have sand in them, if you just want to put water in the base, if sand's too messy or whatever, then you can put water in the base. Most of the Nerf bunkers have a reservoir essentially at the bottom. The majority of the bunker is for air. The bottom is a reservoir that you can put water in to keep it weighted down. That's good for the wind. So now that's the equipment. You basically need the guns, the vest, the masks, the darts, and the bunkers. That's the basic gist of it. You might want buckets for extra darts around. You might want, there are dart picker-uppers dart vacuums for lack of a better term, and those do exist. When we rent our rival stuff for the balls, we give these, they're pretty cool. They're like pickup golf balls and pine cones and stuff, and they pick up the balls really well. So you could check that stuff out if you wanted. But that brings us to sort of the gameplay. So now you've got your equipment, you've got your kids lined up. Typically, you'll play with between 10 and 20 kids. You can play with less if it's typically good to have even numbers, 3 on a team or 4 on a team or 5 on a team, whatever it might be. Play with as many as you want. But when we run Nerf parties, we typically keep it 20 kids or less at one given time. It gets a little messy if you have more than that. So keep that in mind when you're running these parties. But now we'll jump into the games and overviews. One of our Nerf coaches, Jordan, put all this stuff together in terms of the games. So there's some really cool stuff in here. And you can play kind of the single player small team, or you can play free for all. So you can split them up into teams, or you can play them individually. A lot of these. So we'll talk about Battle Royale. We'll talk about Poison Nerf, Blob Nerf. We'll talk about Night at the Museum, Sharks and Minnows, Duck Hunt, Dr. Midnight. And then I like zombies, humans versus zombies that I don't think we have in here, but I'll talk about that as well. We do have like I said, this is all available on the website. So if you go download the battle guide at triangleongames.com, everything you need to know about running a Nerf party, you can find this battle guide. And it's got a cool legend on here. So, it shows the play boundary area, specific game boundary, bucket of darts, where you can put things. So this is to help you when you're laying out the field of play. Hopefully you can kind of put things where it works. And this is from our experience. So the first one I'll talk about is Battle Royale. Battle Royale is a great group size. You can play from 4 to 30 players as long as the teams are fairly evenly split. And then you can play with no teams. You can play with whatever you can play with 2 teams against each other. You can do kind of whatever you want. And typically we'll play in rounds. And so the rounds for this one are typically between 5 and 20 minutes. It does sort of depend on the age range and the number of players that you've got. 10 minutes per round is a really pretty nice normal time. If you've got people that are really into it and they really enjoy the longer rounds, you can do 20 minutes. Or if you've got really young kids, I would probably do the shorter rounds, 5 minutes. But that's kind of the length. And then typically 3 to 5 rounds. So, if you're doing 10-minute rounds, you do 3 rounds of that, 30 minutes of Battle Royale, then we'll move on to another game. We'll typically do 90 minutes of playtime when we're doing our facilitation. You do need bunkers, barriers, cones. And I did forget cones. Sorry. It's good to have at least 4 cones, but probably more like 8 to 10 cones just to kind of lay out the barrier. You want to establish the out of bounds. So obviously you want to round up kids and kind of go through the rules, right? So for Battle Royale, you want to set the expectations, the ground rules. You want to find participants, ask them to find a spot and the player to start from. So you'll typically start the 2 teams on either sides, or kids, if you're just doing a Battle Royale free-for-all, you'll start them kind of all over the course. And there's no real structure, just running around and shooting each other. But when they get shot, they do have to go and sit back at their base or their spot, right? So you can set rules when a participant's hit, especially for 8+-year-olds. We find with kids younger than 8, they don't always follow the rules. They don't get it. They're just running around, having fun. That's totally cool. But with the older kids, you'll sit and count for 5 to 10 seconds to respawn, or you leave the play area. So you can set a specific spot, typically we'll have like a base at each side. And especially when you're playing Capture the Flag, it's the same thing there. But you have a base at each side, and then they'll go back to that base for 5 to 10 seconds, respawn, come back in. You could play with a rule where you only get 3 lives. You can play unlimited lives. It's up to you, up to how much time you have, up to, how interested the kids are in the project. But those are some of the rules. So there's more information on this. There's some variations, King of the Hill and freeze dance style and matchmaking. So check that out. That's the Battle Royale free-for-all. Poison Nerf and Blob Nerf. It's the same thing in terms of rounds, in terms of number of players, in terms of setting the boundaries. And it's similar to Battle Royale, but as they're hit, they sit down and wait to respond. If the person that shot you gets hit, and you kind of have to pay attention. That's why it's not as good for little kids. But if the person that shot you, gets hit, then you're able to respawn. You can come back in and they have to sit down and respawn. And then basically continues until one person's standing. Again, you have limitations of lives typically. It's pretty similar to Battle Royale. Poison or the Blob is another variation where instead of sitting down and respawning, you just join a group and everybody gets into a blob, and then basically the last person to not get joined into the blob is the winner, much like Humans versus Zombies, which is a game where you start maybe with 1 or 2 zombies, and then that zombie's trying to chase around the living players, and if they get tagged, then they become a zombie. Or if they get shot, they become a zombie. You can play either way, but then the last person standing is the winner. So I'm just going to put Humans versus Zombies in with Poison Nerf or Blob Nerf, just because it is very similar to Blob Nerf game. So that's that one. That one's pretty fun. The next one, and again, we've got these diagrams of just kind of how to lay it up, how to set it up. You can put it however you want, but we do feel like that's a good way to ensure the success of it. Night at the Museum, it's going to require some security guards, and then the rest are exhibits or statues. And so, you really want to make sure that, the younger kids might really enjoy this, but the older kids, if you're going to do it, just make sure you explain it really well. Set expectations. The facilitator chooses the first guard, but previous guard selects the next one. So once you become a guard, you would select the next one. And then the security guard walks around to collect the flags. So there's flags around. So as you can see in the diagram, there's four flags laying around, and the security guard walks around and tries to collect the flags. The statues try to tag or shoot the guard before the flags are collected. Statues are allowed to move until the guard is looking at them. So if the guard then looks at the statue, then they cannot move or shoot, and they can only shoot when they're, kind of chasing after the guard. It's very interesting. And then if a statue fails to freeze, then the guard can point and call that person out. So if that statue keeps moving, even when the guard's looking at them, that is a penalty. So typically we'll have a referee that's kind of running around trying to keep track of that. And then when the guard calls out the statue must lay back down on the ground to reset. So kind of fun. It's a little complicated on this one, so definitely read through the rules and run through it with your kids if they do want to play that. Sharks and Minnows is, all of them kind of have a similar, space requirement, a similar requirement in terms of number of players and rounds and things, but you're going to need the bunkers and the barriers and cones, and then you're going to need buckets of darts, obviously. The sharks, so you set out, the number of sharks is determined by the group size, so you would have 1 shark per every 4 to 6 sea creatures, and then basically the shark's trying to get the sea creatures, right? And so then the goal of the shark is to tag or shoot the sea creatures. The sea creatures are trying to run from one end of the line to the other, and if they get past the line, then they're safe. So, you can see right here, you've got boundaries, right? And so you'd start let's say you have 10 kids, you've got 2 sharks, 10 sea creatures. These sea creatures are trying to run down from one boundary line to the other, and they can hide behind obstacles and things like that, but they're not actually really shooting at the sharks, I don't believe, typically. But then the sharks are trying to shoot the minnows, basically. So that one's a fun one, especially for younger kids. That one could be a lot of fun. Duck hunt. This is a good one where the hunter's goal is, there's a hunter, and they're trying to tag or shoot the animals, and the animals are trying to stay alive, essentially. There are no safe zones, so that's the difference between sharks and minnows. You're just kind of running around, and then, you can read more of the details here, but it is another fun variation of that. Dr. Midnight is another fun variation where Dr. Midnight's goal is to tag and shoot the patients. So they all kind of have a similar theme, obviously. So that's some of the fun stuff that we have there. And, we do run into some other variations of these. Battle Royale Team Deathmatch, Capture the Flag is kind of the classic one, right? So you would have 2 teams here, and, they're trying to run down and grab the other's flag. Humans versus Zombies, I guess we did have that here. Hostage is where you'll try and, one person from each team will go to the opposite team and be a hostage. So, there's tons of stuff in here in terms of gameplay that you can play. A lot of variations on this, tests and competitions. We can have marksmanship. So, sometimes people will buy these targets, and the targets are cool because they'll actually, when you hit them, they'll go down and come back up automatically. And that's a fun game to play. So you can do prizes. We've done birthday parties where if you have prizes and you want to give away some prizes or something, you can do a marksmanship competition. You can do all kinds of stuff, Scrabble and shoot. So anyway, there's like 45 pages in here, more than that. We've got 51 pages of stuff. And then we start running into scenarios where you've got, age-appropriate activities and facilitation guidance. There's a lot of information in here, honestly, more than I want to go through in this video right now. But I just wanted to kind of show you that we have this resource available for you. If you're looking to run a Nerf party, this is free. Just download it. It's yours. You can have it. If you need equipment, we rent that in many of our cities, not all of them, but many of them. And, there's links down to Amazon stuff in here. It's the same price you pay, and we just get a couple bucks if you do buy it from us. So we certainly appreciate that. But yeah, if you need more information on Nerf stuff, we're happy to help. Feel free to email support@trianglelawngames.com. You can call us 919-891-3495. I'll probably answer, or me or one of our partners, and we'll get you taken care of. So hope to hear from you, and I hope you guys have a lot of fun with your Nerf party. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.